This is Binod Shankar and you're listening to the Real Finance Mentor podcast from therealfinancementor.com. The Real Finance Mentor is your go-to resource for insight and inspiration on careers in finance, CFA and more. I would think, why this podcast? Well, my goal is to deliver insight and inspiration for your finance career by making it, one, relatable. This is not theoretical stuff. We zero in on the critical, practical issues. Number two, authentic. No bullshit, no sidestepping. The topics, guests, and questions are all from that perspective. And number three, take a chartered accountant and CFA charter holder, add 17 plus years as a corporate warrior, mix in 10 years of entrepreneurship, throw in a decade of full-time CFA training, add speaking, mentoring, cycling, and mountaineering, and that's me. Welcome to the Real Finance Mentor, or as I call it, RFM. This is Binod Shankar here, the Real Finance Mentor, with yet another episode of the RFM podcast, the podcast that brings you insight and inspiration for your finance careers. As you know, I always try to bring a variety of candidates to share their stories with you. And my next guest is Sakshi Gupta. Now, I wanted to talk to Sakshi because this 24-year-old has an interesting and quite an inspirational story. Sakshi comes from a conservative family, was born and brought up in the small town of Tonk in the state of Rajasthan in India. From that humble background, she got an MBA from Banasthali Vidyapith in Rajasthan, and then went to Bangalore, where she was one of the 49 young women who was selected to be part of the first batch of the young women in investment program run by CFA Institute in 2018, an event she terms as the turning point of her life. Now, that bootcamp in turn provided her with an internship opportunity at State Street, one of the largest asset managers on the planet with about $4 trillion under management, which she converted into a full-time position. Sakshi now works at Standard Chartered Bank as a business analyst. She also tells me that apart from all that, she loves dancing, cooking, and reading fiction. Sakshi, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Vinod, for such a nice introduction and also for inviting me to be part of your podcast today. It gives me immense pleasure to be here and to share my story and provide insights to the lessons that I have learned in my journey so far. So I'm very excited and I look forward to our conversation today.
Thanks, Sakshi. So I'll dive into the many questions that I have because you have quite an intriguing background. My first, Sakshi, is you grew up in a small town, Rajasthan, in an obscure village, a town called Tonk, right? Now, tell me about your
Yes.
childhood, especially the circumstances and culture in the family and the society.
First of all, thanks, Vinod, for asking this question. I believe it's an excellent place to start since it will lay a base and provide clarity on the background of our talk today. So, to answer your question, I come from a modest middle class household, how you had defined in my introduction, which is quite conservative, which I believe is primarily due to the external influences and the societal pressure we have. I can say that things are changing now, but back then culture was infiltrated by conservative and backward ideologies and thought processes. People believe that a job was out of equation for women because eventually they will have to get married and they will have to run a household. And as being surrounded by such a society, it doesn't come as a surprise that my family was no exception to such a cultural mindset. So when I try to remember, I can recall that even considering to go out of town for studies was a very difficult decision for us. In context to the other parents, I'm not sure, but mine at times were initially hesitant to send me away for studies just because I was a girl. So that's that's all the story from the past. But in today's era, it's very saddening to observe that there are still those who believe and who say it loud that because she is a girl, she will go out to study and ruin her family's name. And and I'm still perplexed as to what their idea of being spoiled is. So, having said that, amid all this typical social setting was my family of six, which comprised of my grandmother, parents, and two siblings. Uh, Back in those days, when I was in high school, my mother happened to be ill for a very long period of time, and my grandmother was too old. So, managing the household chores and helping our father out became my and my sister's responsibility. And at that point in time, picking a vocation of choice was undeniably challenging for us, because that was a very period where both of us couldn't think about our career, because the choice had to be made between career and the family. And that's how ultimately I ended up doing my schooling and graduation at Tonk.
Hmm. Interesting. The second question I have for you is, tell me about the related constraints that limited your potential and your understanding of the world.
That's a very good question, Binod. As I think it will help us to uncover some of the factors, which we overlook most of the time. So I'd like to draw your attention to a few points here, which comes to my mind quickly. And the first one is the comfort provided. So I obviously truly respect my father for always supporting us and ensuring that we were never short of any resources. But at the same time, I also believe that it is sometimes due to his overprotective nature, and his want to provide us with all the comfort is something that had limited my abilities as an individual. Of course, as a child, I enjoyed it, but it proved to be very first constraint for me, because I never knew how to oversee things all alone. I had never, needed to manage anything, or I had never faced any adverse situation on my own. uh, so I know, I understand that his attitude as a parent might have not been wrong, but what's important here is, what's the key, if you ask me, is, uh, it is establishing the clear lines of responsibility for your children that helps them learn life skills, which are first of all very crucial to learn, and secondly, that is something which will help them thrive, uh, because in the long run, that is something that will help them to trust in their own capabilities. So, as it is said, that it's by experiencing the mastery and rebounding from failure that they develop healthy self confidence. So, apart from that, the another significant factor which I could think of now is uh, the environment and the individuals you are investing your most energy with. It really assumes a key part. Alternate point of view helps us assisting with developing and constructing a wholesome character. So, for instance, I recall that when I was in high school with a friend who was extremely ambitious, disciplined, and she was also a class topper, you know gradually, consciously or subconsciously, I begin to instill and adopt those habits and qualities of her into my temperament. uh, but later on, when I went to the college, which was not a very well known one, of course, I felt that somewhere the mindset there wasn't to prepare and build students with their individual identities to face the world, but the attitude was more, for merely everyone to get their degrees. Um, and as a cherry to top this cake, the students who went to college with me were from the background of well established business families of Tong, and their thought process and vision were completely different and centric to Tong alone. So, by saying so, I'm not implying that they were any less talented or not knowledgeable. They certainly might have had more potential, but what I'm trying to say is we were going into different direction altogether. And That's how I think I became one among them, with no real figure to look up to for my personal and holistic development. And trust me, it was my worst nightmare.
You went to a small college in Tonk, Sakshi, and I recall you telling me it was worse than school. Now, looking back, what are the three things you feel you missed out in college?
That's a great question, Vinod. So, upon self-integration, which what things quickly comes to my mind is the very first one, which I missed out on, was the personality development, and maybe the exploration of my personal self and setting up vision for myself. So when I say that, when we go to school, we have a broad set of extracurricular activities, which can involve maybe inter-house competition, in-house debates, addressing morning assemblies, and so on. I know you must be thinking whatever I had mentioned might sound exceptionally fundamental, but if you ask me, they are really instrumental in laying a strong foundation for your growth and development of your personality. I believe, and I believed that college provides you with the opportunity to groom yourself, to elevate your interest to a whole new level while learning new skills, which I think I completely missed out on. So when I started my MBA program, I could notice that people, you know, seem to have a clear vision for themselves. They had those set of goals. They all were very knowledgeable, and they displayed a depth of knowledge and thirst, you know, to excel. Which of course initially made me very uneasy, as it was a total transition for me, going from talk to pursuing MBA. And for the very same reason, even throughout my young women in investment bootcamp days, uh, I can remember that I was not at all a stranger to feeling inferior, disorientated, and insecure.
Hmm.
Um, and another factors which I could think of now. So, with reference to what we have discussed earlier, my life stages until the point of the boot camp, those portray that how I was confined to the tiny town of Tonk. There have been numerous occasions that depict this as well, but at this moment, I'd like to share an incident that comes to my mind as we speak. That I was having a conversation lately with one of my, juniors who is doing his graduation now. And I was very surprised to learn that he's already involved in stock market trading. So, keen to know more, I just asked him that how he got exposed to it at such a young age. So, to that he responds that few of his college mates introduced him to financial markets in India, and that is something that helped him develop an interest. So so what basically I'm trying to connect with this incident is that what I had with me was only academics and no practical knowledge to apply in the real life. So those were the days when I wasn't backed up by any of on the job skills, and I really had nothing in my hand except the bachelor's degree. So end of the day, my knowledge circulated around the academics and the portions which were covered in the college. uh, and it also might come as a shock to you that I had no idea what CFA, FRM, and the other professional courses were back then, because no one actually came forth with conversation around these topics.
Hmm.
So that's that consists, or that builds the second constraint for me. Another things which comes to my mind, and the most crucial one I would say, which I missed in my early days of career, was mentorship. That is something which I lacked, and due to which I lacked a sense of direction throughout. So those were the early vital days of my career when I needed to work on myself, but unfortunately there was no one to lead or to assist or show me the way ahead. I was completely void of professional contact and networks, and I was unaware of its significance too, I would say. So, at this point in time, I would really like to take this opportunity and, to urge or to appeal all the freshers out there to seek for a mentor. Looking at my journey, I truly feel that a mentor is, someone who is like a light at the end of the tunnel, guiding you when you are lost. So, I think by saying so, I cannot overemphasize the importance of a mentor in one's career.
Right. So, Sakshi, my next question is your father is a shopkeeper, right? And your mom is a housewife, and you come from a conservative family. You could have easily become one of the many girls who get married early and settle down. Yet you went for your MBA at Panastali Vidyapeeth, a residential all women's college, 40 kilometers from Tonk, which means you couldn't see your family for many weeks on end. This must have been a seminal moment for you, right? So I have three questions. First is, where did you get the feeling that you must educate yourself further?
Yeah, so, in the typical societal setting, which I have described earlier, where only the man of the house is expected to earn money and, women are expected to depend on men to meet all their needs. I think this is something which creates a very unhealthy dependency. Over the years, this idea has always made me uncomfortable, and I think that it's high time that these practices should be changed. Actually, when I say that, there are two aspects to it. First is when someone is willing to work and couldn't do due to unnecessary family pressure and societal orthodox norms. And second one is if someone is not willing to work at all. So later one is just fine because that's something they are doing by their choice. But earlier one reflects a very cruel face of the world. And people might challenge me for saying that, but I myself have witnessed that. If I have witnessed people saying that if their daughters and daughter-in-laws would be working, that is something that's going to hamper their reputation in the society. So nevertheless, I have been fortunate enough to grow up in a family with women who have been financially self-sufficient, and they are my bedrock for the ideas which I believe in now. And a lot of my respect for them tags to the fact that they have played their part of creating self-awareness in us, by saying that people may leave, but your education, your knowledge, your skills is something which will stick to you for forever. And it is highly essential to create your own identity by studying and becoming self sufficient and preparing ourselves basically, to deal with any challenging and unforeseeable circumstances which may arise. So a very very huge respect goes to all those women of my family who have actually set those examples for us and have always taught us these lessons. So having said that, the another component apart from this is also the competition, which is very evident when you have been a decent student throughout and you notice that all your classmates were up to something. They are striving to reach next level of their fields. So what are we doing, was a question which we constantly asked ourselves. We knew that if this is going to continue, we would end up like so many other girls who had failed to make their own choices. So it dawned upon us that it's now or never. And that's how I think my sister and I took up the risk to confront my father, question all those old practices, and we finally persuaded him to send us for our master's degree.
Right. So let's talk about that part, right? How did you manage to convince your family to let you get away?
Yeah, so this was again another challenge we had before us,
Mm.
but not so difficult one, I would say, because once you have decided what you wanted, the question of choice, and addressing that comes first. So for my parents, sending us for studies was more of an emotional roller coaster, because we girls were literally the apple of their eyes and we had never stayed away from them. So, this event certainly reminds me of a friend who had appropriately advised me that Sakshi, asked them for a chance to earn they wouldn't be able to say no to. And following that path, we both applied for Banasthali's master's program. We took the exam and got selected. And when we had an opportunity in hand, it really becomes difficult, to ask for something. And this had really worked similarly for me in the case of young women in investment program as well, because I never expected my father would send me to Bangalore. It's very far for us, but he didn't stop me when I already had that opportunity in my bonnet. So to summarize, as to what I'm trying to say here is, my father had realized that we have already made up our minds to pursue our studies further, and he literally respected our decision. I know that I could not go or attend one of the best B schools, but my MBA college, Banasthali Vidyapeeth, proved out to be a stepping stone in our lives, of the few possibilities that weren't available to us back then. So, yeah, it is a well reputed women only residential university, and it is conveniently located near my home in Tong. So it was a great opportunity us, because we had not to compromise on my parents need to see us anytime they wanted.
Hmm. And the third question I have, Sakshi, is what valuable skills or knowledge or connections did you pick up during the MBA program?
Interesting question, Binod. So, for someone who had never gone out on her own before, MBA experience was clearly life changing. I excelled in academics, as I had said, and MBA also helped me to set a vision for myself. It provided me with a platform to, explore many other disciplines, and it also aided in my, personality development. If someone asked me, and if I had to pick up two crucial things, maybe, which I had learned and adopted from my MBA school, the first one would be the collaboration and the importance of the teamwork and the network. And second would be the business ethic lessons derived from the subject called as Indian ethos. This subject was very connected to my roots, and it provided me in-depth insights into Indian ethics, the culture, shastra, and they taught us that how all these things can be integrated into today's fast-paced business environment. And when someone asks me that, what interests me in this subject is that it doesn't tell you what you need to do or what you not to, or in simple terms what is right or what is wrong, but it allows you, you to stop and think and make your own judgment in each circumstances. So, having said that, apart from all the knowledge and the various professional networks, I had also developed personal connections, which include very, very close friends of mine who have been through with me in the thick and thin of my life. And to sum it up, above all, it was my college that paved the path for me to the Young Women in Investment program, which proved to be a significant game changer for me.
Hmm. Now, let's talk about that game changer you just mentioned, right? The 1 month long boot camp that is part of the Young Women in Investment program in the big diverse city of Bangalore must have been a big cultural shock to you. So, I have two questions for you here, right? The first is, That was probably the first time you realized you were behind in quite a few skills and behaviors. What are the three gaps that you found?
Yes, you are right. So, when I arrived in Bangalore and saw the young women in investment cohort, I was completely taken aback, because I discovered that I had so many gaps in terms of competencies, that is something that puts me behind the crowd. And if I have to think, and the top three which comes to my mind to point out here are, first of all, the very important one, confidence. When I arrived there, I had lost the little confidence I had, in myself, seeing the quality of the people at the boot camp. I do not lie when I say that it did shock me to my roots. Perhaps it was, because I hadn't seen such talented and ambitious peers until that point. And, naturally, somewhere at the back of my mind, I started comparing myself with the rest. I was at that point in time, I was so desperate, to find out at least one area which or where I was better than someone else, just for my sanity. And it is evident that it was not at all the right way to deal with the things. So that's one of the lessons learned. But another most important aspects that made me feel insecure during the boot camp days, uh, the another one goes communication. So it is, you must have heard that it is said communication is the key, and I could not agree more to it. When I went there, my first language was not English and I was not fluent in it. I did not feel comfortable at all conversing in English, and this completely eroded my self assurance, and I was left in total insecurity about myself. Apart from that, the another gap which I found was on my skill set, including, the soft or the interpersonal skill. So, as I stated before, what I mastered in academics, I lacked in expression. I think I have stated it enough that the only strength of mine that I could hold on my academic knowledge, but I concluded that it was of no point if you lack the soft skills. I have been an expert when it comes to books and the theoretical knowledge, but no clue on how to express my opinion, how to put up my knowledge out there by speaking up. If that's really important, the crucial part, because if you have the knowledge, you need to be able to express it and present it, right? Demonstration is very important, and I felt that your knowledge is of no value unless and until you can demonstrate it. So these are the, key tools that are, key tools for the soft skill are like networking, your assertiveness, and communication, as I mentioned.
Hmm. And the second question I have for you on this boot camp is, I recall you telling me in our conversation that you wished you had utilized that 1 month young women in investment boot camp better. Can you explain by detailing the three things you would do differently if you went back now?
Yeah, definitely. I want a chance back. So to go back and, undo some of the things. So, since as we have just discussed on the major gaps I had found, it's a bit easier, I would say, to answer this question, because looking back, I would have been, better equipped to deal with my weakness. I had avoided letting them come in my way of interacting with people, collaborating, and, participating in the different activities which were scheduled. So in short, what I'm trying to say is I should have asked more questions, I should have been open to more discussions, and been more authentic, to give my batchmates a chance to know me better, which I totally different doing in the boot camp.
Hmm. Now, at some point shortly after the young women in investment boot camp, I think during the internship at State Street, you had this realization, you told me, that totally changed your mindset and performance. You said to yourself that enough is enough. Take me through the three biggest factors that changed your mind.
Yeah, that's right, Binod. So, to mention, first of all, I would like to attribute it to my background and the hard work that I had put in to reach where I am now. Not to forget, my family's immense faith in me was truly a key contributing factor because I knew that I could not let them down. So, whenever I felt like quitting, my motto has always been, to look at my journey and, see from where I started, how and why did I start, and how far I have made it. That brief retrospective is something that can push anyone to move forward, because your journey has not come to an end, and that will not come to an end unless you decide to put a full stop to it. So that was one of the biggest factor which did drive me, not to give up. And the next important element was obviously the lessons that I had learned from the boot camp. uh, in the boot camp, I had learned that I was capable, and I certainly had potentials, but I had to develop my skill sets a lot more to catch up with the rest. I was among the set of bright-minded people who were, either CFA charter holders or had any another qualifications. But it pained me initially that the world was so competitive and how ambitious people were. So. Uh, what I did is I closely studied them, and they left a profound impact on me. um, I had learned my lesson. So what I did is to aspire for more and beyond by learning from them and trying to imbibe their qualities, or or the way of life, to achieve at least to at least achieve what they have achieved so far, or if not, then at least aim for it. So that 1 month of boot camp gave me an insight to exactly what I was missing in terms of professional skill set, and what were the key areas I needed to work on. And I am really thankful to the CFA team for putting together this program, because not many people, I would say, get to know this soon in their professional journey, like they need to improvise in themselves, whereas I got to know before the start of my career the things I needed to work on to reach where my talent can take me. So this was the another factor. And finally, the events that took place right before the culmination of the boot camp, it did struck a realization in me that I haven't reached the zenith. I am distincting in some ways, and that was the very reason I was sharing the room with the rest whom I looked up to. uh, I certainly realized that, above all the things, self worth and believe in myself was extremely important. Looking up to someone and, using that at the same time to let you down or to, undermine yourself can be self destructive. And that's when I thought and I concluded that whatever has done. The past has facilitated me to reach this point, and now there is no going back. So it was a journey forward from there that mattered for me, and I next focused on making best out of my internship to complete it on an uh, exemplary note, I would say. But at the times when you will be more determined and focused, there will be more circumstances that put you to test, and I was not an exception to it. So soon following my joining at State Street, I realized that I'm going to be part of an IT team, and my job role would be that of a tester. this event again, by this event I was taken aback, and because I was completely clueless that, because despite of having a solid business background, I have landed in a tech role which I obviously knew nothing about. So what I did, I also expressed my concern to some of my teammates, and I inquired into the possible reason that why I was selected for this role when I was expecting something, in a corporate finance kind of team. So at that point in time, to be honest, for a while all that determination evaporated into thin air at that moment. But then again, as I had stated earlier, that I did take a step back, and then I did take a look back at the takeaways from the boot camp, that really worked out for me at that point in time. And I told to myself that this is the chance, for me to explore the unknown and gain the extensive range of experience. So this thought had fueled me up, and from there I was only concerned about working hard to excel in the role entrusted upon me, and to attain the trust of my co-workers.
Now, Sakshi, one of the key people that supported you at State Street was your buddy at the time of onboarding, right? An assistant manager who later became your mentor and then your manager. You watched her closely and learned a lot from her and a few other managers you worked with. All this is obviously helpful when one begins a career. So I have two queries here, right? The first is, it takes two hands to clap. And I'm sure while you had great managers, the managers also saw something special in you and thought you were worth helping. You said in our earlier conversation that they liked your spirit. What exactly is the spirit they saw in you?
Okay, so when I put forth a similar kind of question before my manager, um, she said to me that, Sakshi, she admires my work ethic and ability. Also, the dedication and the accountability which I demonstrate towards the works assigned. It also includes my willingness to tackle problems and my capability of finding solutions to any scenario. To that, she further added that my other traits, like approachability and flexibility, and also supporting colleagues, were all the qualities that stood out in me. And when I asked her, like, uh, about the spirit, as you mentioned, so when it comes to it, she told me that she and the team admired the energy that I put in everything I do and I brought to work. So she simply says it all the time to me, that, Sakshi, you inspire me and others too. And I cannot define you that how powerful these words can be. I really cannot stress enough on how they motivate me to put in my best efforts.
Right. Now, the second query I had regarding what you learned from a manager at State Street, right? What are the three key things, Sakshi, that you learned from your managers?
So when it comes to the learnings, I have certainly acquired many things from her and other managers, which I have worked in my stint during State Street. So they all have been really very supportive of me personally and professionally. And I always say that to them, that if workplace had people like them, work would always be pleasant and enriching experience. She had surely assisted me in learning things from ground up. So if I try to recall, for example, I remember that during my initial days of internship, she even taught me effective email writing, which is very very basic thing but very crucial to learn. And To mention the few other notable qualities that I have picked up from her, that comes to my mind is building relationship, understanding the individuals and connecting with someone on a very personal level and establishing a good rapport. Uh, is something I had learned from her. That is something undoubtedly makes your work more enjoyable, and it makes it easier, especially when you are working in in a team, and where the collaboration is required. So that is something which I have adopted from her. And when I say that, of course, I know that we must be selective here, because we cannot interact on personal basis with the whole lot. But however, we should try and establish cordial relations with everyone by understanding their background, as it helps, in the long run. Um, Apart from that, the other quality which I really admire of her and the another managers or the seniors from my team was delegation. Uh, it is imperative to maintain trust and share knowledge. And to be honest, I miss this incredible experience of sharing and putting my trust in the people during the initial weeks at State Street. I had a hard time trusting people with my work actually. I always assumed that they will screw it up, so better do it myself. And as a result of it, I avoided sharing my expertise and efforts with others. So I observed that I was frequently overburdened, but at that point in time it was from the practices and also the direction of my superiors and seniors, I would say, that made me learn that the importance of believing in others. My managers had trusted in me and they had given me a chance, and that's how I had landed a job in State Street. So how can't I do it for others? So going forward, that's exactly what I did. I gave others a chance and I opened the doors for them. Uh, because it not only assists you in delegating your work, but at the same time, it also instills that confidence in the person on the other side. And and I can remember that whenever my manager had assigned me any task, it made me feel confident that she believes in me, and that's the reason she is giving me this task. So it's very important, for other person also to feel confident. And how can you do that? How can you make them feel confident is by delegating more work to them. So, as you know, in the long run, this journey isn't it about me or you, it's about us. So this was a lesson learned from her, I would say, and my another managers, of course. Another key factor which comes to my mind, uh, especially from my manager, is the commitment. I really, really admire the attitude, her attitude especially, and the leadership skills in the way she runs any project. I have worked with her, so her skills are very smooth, I would say, just like as flowing water. And at times I am often taken aback, by the way she takes the accountability for any work she does. So as a matter of fact, also she has also proven her leadership skills numerous times to me. you know being it putting a together being putting a social event, or engaging teams in a global event. Everything she did, just with a smile on her face. And where this fact remains that she is also a daughter, wife, sister, and most importantly, she is a mother to a little one outside of her work. So from what I had observed, that she never compromised on any of her roles. And that is something which me and my parents were afraid of, that if female becomes a career woman. So she completely proved us wrong, and completely. And I don't know from where she gathers this strength and commitment that she shows towards the work, but she amused me every single day with the manner she handled everything in her personal life as well. So these are the key takeaways, I would say.
Hmm. Now, from what you told me, the journey went from the shy, inarticulate girl, right, who never raised her hands, to a confident young woman who, while just a junior associate at State Street, was the only person in her team to interview the business unit head, an opportunity which even seniors in her team didn't bother taking up. So I found that quite interesting. So my question here, number one, is why did you volunteer?
So I volunteered because I somewhere knew that these opportunities doesn't come by always. It's actually very rare that it is being offered to the folks in an open forum. So I just thought that if I took up this opportunity, I knew that it would enable to prove myself, as people would get a chance to know that what I am capable of outside the work I deliver. Moreover, I also thought that it's going to be a learning experience for me because the exposure and the insights, not just within the team but also in the organization, would be magnified, as I had never handled an open discussion with the people in the topmost hierarchy so far. So knowing that I had never done such a thing before, I thought, what could be a better way to start? And I knew that it's gonna be challenging, but I thought that I was ready to give it my best shot.
Hmm. And what exactly gave you the confidence to raise your hands?
Mm, Interesting but a difficult question, I would say, because if you ask me now, I don't think I have a definite answer to it. But what I would like to say is it came as a reflex. Uh, Later, as I said earlier, like, I also did consider the advantages it would bring to me. Head start for the similar future events, and what could be a better way to start, and few other things. But I was just thrilled at the prospect of gaining wide insights and also the far reaching visibility into the working of the firm. Um, to be frank, I never thought that I would get this opportunity, as there were senior members who were also present. But I just raised my hand anyway, thinking that what is the harm going for it? And voila, I got it.
Hmm. Which, of course, brings me to a very interesting question: is why didn't the others in your team, most of them your seniors with 5, probably 7 years of experience, refuse this valuable opportunity?
Okay, this is another tricky question. I'm
Hmm.
not sure, like, why others didn't raise their hands, but I believe, I think that they all must have thought that, just like me, that they all must have thought that this opportunity was far too good for them to get a chance at. And consequently, I think this can be a takeaway for everyone, to not to hesitate, or not to hesitate to ask or to volunteer, and not to let that fear basically of apprehension hold you back in raising your hands or asking for things. So to conclude at this point in time, I think this event also taught me the importance of ask. um, just imagine the case, what if I had just thought in my head that there are senior members in the team and I might not get this opportunity, and I did not raise my hand. You know the answer, right? That I would have never got this amazing experience. So at that moment, I had just thought that what's the harm in asking? Even if I don't get it, there is no loss for me, because the last thing which anyone can do is saying no. And I, in the back of my head, I would be, calm, because I would know that at least I had asked for it. So I would say that we should never assume but just ask. And the situation is always win-win, as the last thing someone can do is say no.
Hmm. Now, let's talk about work. Now, everyone gets criticized at work, especially when they're new and you make a lot of mistakes. And you can't have been an exception. What was your reaction to the criticism that you received?
You correctly stated, Binod. No one is immune to it. Just like appraisal, I think we should also be open to receiving criticism, because no one is perfect in the world, right? We all have a scope to improve. So why to take it other way when someone highlights what you can improve on? They are eventually making your job easy to figure it out, right? So even me, I was quite sensitive to taking criticism. As a fresher in the professional world, I would say, I would end up taking everything personally, and at the end of the day getting depressed. But now when I look back, I can surely say that that's the worst thing to do to ourselves. um, because once that victim mentality creeps in, it's not easy to let go. And from the workplace, I have seen certain examples couple of times when where some of my colleagues had taken things personally and they had messed up. So uh, people can make mistakes, as I did, and they took criticism personally. But it's only the matter of the time until you figure out that how you want to approach criticism. There is a two-way street. Either you want to take lessons from it, or you want to let down by it. So you just have to make a choice. And additionally, one key takeaway from all the examples that I had seen in the workplace was that your personal life should not be mixed with your professional life. And I know that criticism is not a cakewalk. The feeling that follow it, it's not something desirable, but the lessons learned from it are something that remains with you. So never carry any grudge, take your time and move on, is a piece of advice that I have always been given, and that is something I have followed throughout.
So, Sakshi, they say that the company culture is extremely important in developing and engaging an employee. I think you have to be lucky to work in such a culture, right? Now, you told me that you love working at State Street. What are the elements of the culture that you like the most and why?
Yeah, so before getting to that point, whenever I appraise about State Street's work environment and its rich culture, people always say that to me, that your first company is like your first love, and you're always emotionally attached to it, and you will feel like holding on it for a lifetime. But apart from that fact, State Street had actually given me many reasons to love it, I would say. As a fresher in the industry, no hierarchical culture was the first impression about State Street that got itched in my mind. I was per hearsay under the impression that investment industry is comprised of not so good and maybe obnoxious employers. However, the way I was welcomed and addressed literally changed my perception. Everyone was respected and they were treated fairly in the organization. And later on, to my surprise, even this higher management never displayed their superiority, and they were very friendly with me, I would say. So for instance, I still remember the events where senior managers would come by and they will have a brief talk with me, you know just to put me at ease and just to make sure that I was not feeling alienated. And they used to ask me questions like, how is my family. They used to ask me about my town, etc., etc., which somewhere shows that they were making an attempt to know me. And all this collectively left a lasting impression on me since I felt valued.
Hmm.
So apart from that, the another one is one of the key beliefs that State Street proudly uphold, and which also depicts inclusion, and that is together we are stronger. Being part of the organization, it made me realize that how important individuals are. As it's been said that great places are being created by great people,
Hmm.
and if you are surrounded by people with good attributes, so then you tend to push yourself beyond your limits, and you are most likely to succeed. So if that's not the case, you may not have meaningful growth and learning. So when I look upon my journey, I think I was very fortunate enough to be part of a group and culture that constantly encouraged me. It also challenged me at times, and it helped me to grow and explore and broaden my horizons, I would say.
Hmm. Now, you told me, Sakshi, that one significant event was when you went back to Banastali Vidyapit, right? Your MBA college with Amit Chakravarti from CFA Institute, who, of course, runs the Young Women in Investment program. And you presented to a big audience about the program in that college. Why was it so significant for you?
Yeah, that day I still remember, it was 19th February 2020, Wednesday. It was truly significant event for me. I fall short of words when I attempt to describe it, but if you ask me, the experience was profound, and it is one of the highlights in my graph. Returning to my starting point and sharing my journey with those who now stand there, I think it's not an opportunity that comes knocking always. And it was more noteworthy, for me, as it was just a few years ago that I was part of the same audience on the other side, and I was totally unsure that how would I take up my career forward, how would I accomplish my goals, and etc. Those were the questions I had in my mind back then. But now I am back at the same place, and that too as a guest speaker, accompanied by the director of CFA Institute, who represented them and young women in investment program. And that girl who was once shy and confused landed a job in State Street and now stands confident shoulder to shoulder with the peers in full demeanor, and motivating more and more young women to follow in her footsteps. So, because that girl was me, the experience couldn't be more cherishing, I would say. If you ask me, that day bore a fruit when I eventually come to know that I was being looked up by someone as a role model, and all those experiences, put together made it a remarkable day for me.
Hmm. Now, Sakshi, there are millions of youngsters like you out there, right? In cities, towns, and villages around the world who have potential, but are held back either by themselves or by others or by a mix of both. What are the bits of advice that you would give them?
Thanks, Vinod, for asking this question. Actually, I'm very happy to share the key things which I have learned from my journey so far, and which have helped me somewhere throughout. So, the very first one which comes to my mind and which I have actually applied somewhere is, you have to be determined, you and focused. I personally believe that if your level of determination somewhere outweighs your hard work, as in 49% of hard work maybe, and which is followed by 51% of determination. So this combination, sometimes this combination of your sheer determination could open doors and it can lead you towards your goal. I have personally experienced this in several ways. But when I say that, you have to be very cautious because it only works when there is a marginal difference between the two, which is hard work and determination.
Hmm.
And so you will have to be very mindful by whenever you are leveraging this formula, I would say.
Hmm.
So the another thing which I have learned being part of the corporate culture, which comes to my mind quickly, is you know don't put all your eggs in one basket. I know that someone had said it in context of investments, but the same applies to almost everything in your life. Not
Hmm.
all individuals, all organizations are same, and it's really not fair to treat them same way, right? So you have to be very careful on this note. And just to add further on this one, but maybe in some another context, um, I have also experienced that not all the times you will be able to walk in someone else's shoes. I know you must be wondering that what I mean by that. So for
Hmm.
example, if your shoe size is 7, whereas you are trying to wear someone else's shoes which is of maybe size 10, then obviously you are not going to have a good experience, right? And you will end up complaining. So to conclude that point, we should seek lessons from others, but sometimes you will have to sail on your boat by yourself. And this is something which I had learned lately when I was changing my job. And people told me that, Sakshi, don't go for that organization, don't go for this organization, it is not good. So I respect them all because they all were my seniors and friends, and they were trying to help me so that I can make an informed decision. But at the end, I felt that maybe they have made these perceptions based upon their experiences, or maybe per hearsay. So rather, in such cases, my personal opinion is to inquire more details, like, okay, if you say this company is not good, then which company, which department, which process, or the team or the managers of it you didn't like, and what are the possible reasons that made you not liking them.
Hmm.
So understand on those grounds and then make a call, is what I would like to say. So apart from that, moving on, the another thing which comes to my mind is you know being open to the new challenges is one of the key learnings I had in my journey. We all are placed in a fast paced dynamic business environment, and we need to be open to anything which is coming up on our way. This was this was one of the another blunder that I had made at first, because right, I had told you in the beginning that how I was scared when I was being put up in an IT team. So I was scared. It made me scared. To be scared, I was not, to be honest, I was not scared because the challenge scared me. But, or I didn't wanted to undergo any change, but I was afraid to fail and make mistakes. But it is with the time I realized that you grow and learn only when you take on more challenges and make mistakes. So that's the key thing. So be open to challenges every time. It will help you in the long run. Yeah. uh, Another, there are so many things I would like to share, but I will stick on to only few, keeping the time in the mind. So the moving on to the next, which I can remember is, you know, I know, I think most of people must have heard about it and know its significance already. So I'll just keep it very short and clear, that creating your network and building relationships, being both interpersonal and professional, is necessary, as it is something that will help you when you need someone and someone needs you. So it works both the ways, so it's very important to create your network.
Hmm.
And maybe last for today, but not the least, and most importantly, is it all starts and comes from you. It is something where self beliefs comes into picture. And it is very important to never ever underestimate yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, there is no reason for anyone else to believe in you. And each of us have our own defined personalities. We have our own traits which makes each one of us different from the rest. So never pull yourself down
Hmm.
mentally, and never never instill those thoughts of self doubt or comparison, and thinking being less than someone else. So stay fearless, and never ever go into such directions, I would say. And this is something I had learned when I was in my school days. And with that being said, it really gives the room for one of my favorite poem by Vanessa Ori. And Vinod, if you won't mind, please allow me to read a few lines from that poem for
Sure.
all of you today. So the poem is I am special and so are you. And it reads like, I am special and so are you. Just imagine how boring the world would be if Mother Nature believed in uniformity. If Mother Nature believed in uniformity, all living beings the same in color and shape, the ant and the ape, a leopard and a bear, a watermelon and a pear, the birds soaring high, the clouds floating by, the leaves on every tree, the fish in every sea. Hey, maybe even you and even me. X, wouldn't life be a tragic shame if everything looked, felt, smelled exactly the same? We each have a purpose, we each have a role, we each with a dream, each with a goal. We each are different, special, and rare, each an answer to a special prayer. So love who you are in life, heaven, aim. Be happy to be special, not boringly same. Be who you are, do what you do, because I am I and you are you. Because I am I and you are you. Thank you.
Oh, I think that is the most spectacular finish I've had on any podcast interview, Sakshi. So lyrical and so deep and meaningful as well. Thank you so much for that. And more importantly, thank you for spending the time sharing your experience and perspective as a young girl growing up in conservative small town in rural India, all the way to where the Young Women Investment Program and to State Street, a huge asset manager, and now in Standard Chartered Bank. I think it's very impressive, it's very insightful, and also very inspirational. And I wish you the very best in your career. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Sakshi, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, surely, Vinod. Thank you so much. It was pleasure to be here.
Podcast is brought to you by The Real Finance Mentor. Thank you so much for listening. And I really hope you found it insightful and inspirational. If you did enjoy this episode, please drop us a review and spread the word. And be sure to check out more exclusive content on therealfinancementor.com and my LinkedIn profile, which is Binod Shankar CFA. Let's keep in touch. Just add your name to the mailing list on therealfinancementor.com and we'll tell you about new episodes, plus book reviews, upcoming events, and blogs. Till the next time, onwards and upwards.